A very good morning to everybody. Today in my class, I am going to discuss about blockchain, the features of blockchain, and how blockchain initiated with the Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency. So let us now present our screen. We begin with blockchain. Firstly, let us define what a blockchain is. A blockchain is a digital, immutable, distributed ledger that chronologically records transactions in near real time. The prerequisite for each subsequent transaction to be added to the ledger is the respective consensus of the network participants, thereby creating a continuous mechanism of control regarding manipulation, errors, and data quality. Basically, blockchain, by the name, understands for a layman is not a simple ledger which companies used to provide or maintain earlier, but it's a distributed ledger. By this, we mean that the same ledger, that is, the entries about the business transactions which are recorded in the ledger, are distributed across all the stakeholders in a particular business ecosystem. As a result, it is called a distributed ledger. The same ledger is available as a duplicate copy to all the stakeholders in a blockchain ecosystem, and all can view it from their perspectives. However, only limited stakeholders have the right to manipulate the changes which can be made into those ledger. To do that, we will be succeeding it in the next part of the discussion of the class. So to begin with, this is a traditional database where there is a lot of interaction between the various stakeholders, and there are multiple intermediaries which are interconnecting with each other. Unlike a blockchain paradigm, wherein all the stakeholders are connected to each other through a very regularized transaction system. Each of these blockchain paradigm members, which are called the nodes or the participants or the stakeholders, interact in a set, that is, a transaction takes place between the parties, as can be seen with connected lines. However, these transactions are tracked or maintained in a proper framework. Each of the stakeholders maintains their record of transactions, which are also duplicated with other ledger systems of other stakeholders and nodes, so that all the entities or the stakeholders are at the same point of connect when it comes to a distributed ledger. Now, the types of blockchain. Blockchains could vary from a public blockchain to a permission blockchain to a private blockchain. What is a public blockchain? A public blockchain is something wherein, for example, like the Bitcoin, where anybody and everybody could be a participant of this ecosystem or this system of stakeholders of a business, where all the parties have the right to make changes in the blockchain, that is read and write. So it is an open blockchain system where it is open to the public. One such example could be a voting mechanism or the healthcare system mapping of a nation can be tracked through public blockchain. Extreme to a public blockchain is a private blockchain. In a private blockchain, it is a very high trust entity blockchain which has permission centralized. That is, the decision to make changes in the documents or the transactions, or for that matter in the ledger, is given to only one entity, and the rest are mere read participants to the distributed ledger. A private blockchain is a highly centralized blockchain where the accessibility and the power to make changes in the transaction has a very limited scope. Unlike these two extreme ends, there is a permission blockchain which is quasi-essential. By this we mean that it is lying between the public blockchain, which is open to all, and a private blockchain, which is open, not open to all, but specific to a single entity. A permission blockchain allows for write options in the blockchain or the transaction to a few, and read permission also is to a few participants. So a permission blockchain comes in its permissionable actions of making transactional changes in a database between the public blockchain and the private blockchain. So most of the supply chain blockchains, which are like Barclays are using, and other entities of, for example, Walmart, where you have more access to public. However, it is not completely private. So this is what a permission blockchain is. Moving on, a blockchain key features. The blockchain's key features are that it is near real time. As and when the transactions are recorded in a business ecosystem, they are mapped into the blockchain. There is no intermediary involved in a blockchain. That means there is no third party mediator. So the transactions between the two stakeholders is direct and without interim mediatories, which is increases the efficiency of the blockchain. It's a distributed ledger. By that we mean is that a same ledger is visible or read by all, and it has the it's the similar ledger that gets distributed or seen across the supply chain to maintain the truthfulness or the data in one site. Irreversibility and immutability is that if a transaction has taken place in a blockchain and has got recorded, there is no means by which it can be changed or the information can be changed. This leads to better parity, better trust, and better authenticity and security of the data that is encrypted into a blockchain. Smart cards contracts are another very important variant to a blockchain feature which talks about all the transactions that takes place or get executed have to be permissioned, and both the entities or the partners have to approve their set of approvals in order to get the transaction completed. So this increases the trust factor between the two uh, parties among which the transaction is taking place. So the stored procedures executed in a blockchain to process a predefined business steps and execute a commercially legal enforceable transaction without the involvement of an intermediary. So this certain embedded features of a blockchain provides for a one truth for all kind of an information exchange between the different stakeholders. The blockchain benefits, as can be seen from the slide, talks about timestamping, that is, the event or the transaction that takes place gets recorded both in time and in space. Very high security because it's very difficult to encroach or break the blockchain, or for that matter, it's very difficult to uh, um, break the entire blockchain. This is because the data in a blockchain is encrypted using the Merkle technology of hash. Authenticity, we talk about the digital signatures and which provides authenticity to the documents in the smart contracts. B2B ownership is end-to-end asset lifestyles where what, how the product has exchanged hands across the supply chain is all tracked in a blockchain. Resilience is that through replication, the same data is visible to all, as a result of which nobody can duplicate or nobody can be a fraud into the system. Data loss protection. Universal data loss becomes a lesser issue because if it gets lost from one person or one node or one entity or one stakeholder is still acceptable, but from all, that's something which is a question mark. Data management is talking about the master data management, which is executed without a controlling entity. And the last is the programmable logic. Sophisticated algorithms have been used, which are able to execute the transaction between the two stakeholders, without which the transaction will not be accounted in the blockchain. So these blockchain benefits make it to be one of the most pioneering and one of the most developing technologies which is taking over the business world irrespective of the business domain. The next area of discussion is the blockchain and its use cases. As you can see, blockchain has found its presence in retail and CPG, oil and gas industry, healthcare and life sciences, telecommunications, and specifically the public sector. Because of its variant use across the business domains, blockchain technology is growing at a very, very fast pace. Moving on, now that we've introduced to you what a blockchain is all about, we would like to study as to how the blockchain came into being. What is blockchain all about? So basically, blockchain as a technology was first implemented through the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin known as. Now, what is blockchain technology? What is Bitcoin and how is it different from each other are some of the queries which are very, very nascent and addressed by a lot of audience in my class. In order to answer it, I would just go back into the history to bring to you an introduction of the Bitcoin. The history of the Bitcoin is in 2008, the idea was published under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, who had published in his white paper the description of Bitcoin, which happened back in 2008 in his very famous white paper. In 2009, the Bitcoin network goes alive and the first Bitcoins are mined. The first cryptocurrency stock exchange for trading Bitcoin is launched, and by 2011, one Bitcoin was equal to one USD. Basically, the Bitcoin are digital currencies which do not have intermediaries and have very public domain access where people are transacting with each other through a virtual digital economic currency which is earning, and with every transaction the relative parties are making a transaction of a commodity which is virtual and worth some dollars of money, which is growing at a very fast pace, the value of this Bitcoin. So this Bitcoin was first, which was laid down on the basic framework of the blockchain technology. The history of blockchain part 2, which talks about in 2013, one Bitcoin equaled 100 USD. By 2014, Microsoft starts accepting Bitcoin as payments. So currently, there are many big corporate giants who are using Bitcoins as a transactional commodities in business. So Bitcoin is gaining a lot of importance in the business domain. In 2017, one Bitcoin equaled 10,000 US dollars, and it's been rising ever since. So Bitcoin is not blockchain. Bitcoin is an application of blockchain technology. So Bitcoin is a currency and a system that uses the blockchain technology as its underlying data structure, which can be used for many things, including cryptocurrencies. Blockchain is the underlying data structure. So just to help the audience, Bitcoin has used the technology of blockchain to be able to be functional in a public domain. Now, going back to what is a blockchain? A blockchain is a growing list of data blocks, as you can see, data block 1, 2, and 3, which are linked together through a reference blocks. So that is, that one block is linked to another through a reference, that is connecting each block to the other. So we see it is a chain that is created between the blocks of data which are interconnected to each other. Thus, a blockchain is a data structure which is growing list of data blocks. The data blocks are linked together such that all blocks cannot be removed or altered. So this is the reason why we say that blockchain has a very high level of security not getting lapsed, because if any one block is tampered, it will further affect or reference data from the adjoining blocks, and hence to break the synergy or the interconnectivity between all the data blocks is not very viable and is not that easy, making it a highly security proof domain. Now, the Bitcoin ecosystem. So the Bitcoin, a public network in which anyone, including a malicious participant, can participate without restriction. Even though it is not organized by a central authority, it works. So this transaction of monetary virtual money happens in a virtual space. However, like we have the Reserve Bank of India, which moderates the flow and the circulation of the amount of currency in India, unlike a regulatory authority which does that, the Bitcoin ecosystem does not have a central authority which regulates the system. It is a public domain. The Bitcoin ecosystem is an amazing breakthrough that came with Bitcoin, that is, even if it is a malicious participant can participate, the system works without a regulator. Then why is it that Bitcoin is gaining so much of importance? The Bitcoin ecosystem is self-stabilizing. The more participants in the system, the more difficult to manipulate the information, because every participant has the information about the rest of the participants in the ecosystem. The more difficult manipulations become and the more participants are involved, the greater is the demand for Bitcoin. This results in a price increase, which in turn attracts even more participants, which makes the system even more complex and more difficult to break the non-synergy between the participants. So this is a very good example wherein a middleman has been negated from the system of between two parties who are going to make a transaction with each other. So in a Bitcoin, there is a direct transfer of Bitcoin. So the blockchain technology makes middlemen, or the so-called trusted third party, obsolete in the system. Bitcoin can serve an example here. Bitcoins are not rooted through a central instance or an entity, example a bank, that can be transferred directly between the parties, making the system more cost efficient, making the system more time efficient, and better trust between the stakeholders. Building consensus is a very important part of a blockchain, and so in a Bitcoin technology as well, which uses blockchain as its technology on which it works on. The blockchain technology has a wide range of applications for consensus building. Consensus is that everybody would accept the decision taken between the intermediaries. In a finite time frame, all participants of the blockchain agree on a proposal which was worked out by a benign participant. At Bitcoin, for example, all participants agree on who owns how many Bitcoins. But many applications are also conceivable in industries. So what they're trying to say is that when a Bitcoin transaction takes place in the ecosystem, then all the entities agree to the fact that these are the Bitcoins which were transferred and these are the ones which have not, and how much of the Bitcoins each one possesses. So there is a mutual consensus. Now this we're talking about a public domain in a blockchain. However, there could be permissioned or quasi-permissioned blockchains which would allow this permissioned access of information, read and write accessibility to a limited few entities who are participants in the blockchain. Creating witnesses. Whenever a transaction takes place in a non-online environment, have you seen that there is always a third party who acts as a witness to a particular transaction? Blockchain makes this authenticity viable through the smart contracts, wherein the parties who are entering into a transactions have to go through the smart contracts to be able to make a blockchain accountable in the chain of the recorded information of a blockchain, making it a very, very powerful and very authenticated system in a blockchain. So the key features of a blockchain are it's only write-only, immutable, transparent data storage, which is decentralized with no intermediaries, consistent state across all participants, resistant against malicious participants, and it's open to everyone. However, the challenges of blockchains are also there. Although blockchain technology has a very strong disruptive power and can change many areas of business, making it time, cost, and highly efficient, there are some challenges that need to be addressed. The high energy consumption, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. The scalability issue, Bitcoin supports far less transactions per second than example in Visa, which makes it a little challenge in a very open environment where there is a lot of transactions. It opens up possibility for money laundering. Some blockchains, as Monero, are anonymous. The question remains as to how far we want to bypass the middleman. Often he can also protect us. Example, a bank can protect us from fraud or a money transaction that can be transacted to a long person. So as the blockchain technology materializes and matures into the business domains, it is yet to materialize and become very strong and get its holding into the business. However, so far so good. The opportunities and the scope and the advantages that Bitcoin offers in contrast to its challenges are something that are fathomable in coming times and can be addressed to making Bitcoin a very, very powerful application through cryptocurrencies in a blockchain technology to be working well. Thank you. This is for today in terms of the blockchain. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the class on blockchain, its features, and Bitcoin as a technology which uses blockchain. Thank you.